Aloha, I'm Reverend Tim Lytle, Senior Minister here at Unity Church of Hawaii in Honolulu. And we are so grateful for all of you who watch us on our YouTube channel. We know with you that as you view these teachings and apply them to your lives, that it helps to build your life into the very best one that can be imagined. If you're ever in the area, please come and join us for a service, and please enjoy the message that you're about to watch. Aloha. We're looking today at we are Ohana. We are family. Today is Aloha Sunday. What does it mean to be Ohana? What does it mean to be family? Let me share with you this proverb. Ike aku, ike mai. Kokua aku, kokua mai. Pela iho laka no noha ohana. And what this means is recognize and be recognized. Help and be helped. Such is family life. Family life requires an exchange of mutual help and recognition. That is, we're in this together. I've told some of you before that in Wichita, Kansas, I was in the high school that was the only high school that had canoeing classes. We were right by a beautiful river, and so we had canoeing classes, and I had the opportunity to canoe with people of all types of various skill levels. Some were really good, and some didn't have a clue. But we would be in the boat together, and it was sink or swim, right? And so if I saw that we needed some help in our teamwork, we would address that, because that's what families do. They address what is going on in the family. Now, the family that I grew up in sometimes had challenges talking with each other. I remember my dad saying to me one time, "Why isn't it that you tell me what's going on in your life?" Now, my dad and I became like best friends later in his life. But at that time in his life, he was an intimidating figure to me. He was a figure that was hard for me to relate with. He typically would find my shortcomings and talk to me about my shortcomings and typically not point out my attributes. And so when he said, "Why don't you talk to me about what's going on in your life?" I said, "Well, for starters, you're never home, you're never available, and you never listen." He took a deep breath and walked away. And I went, "Whew, what did I just do?" Later that evening, my dad, in his pajamas, comes to my bedroom. He has a chair with him. And he sits down. And he's very relaxed. And I see him in an unusually receptive mood. And he said, "Let's talk." Well, I hadn't had the opportunity to experience that before. So for a while, I was sort of dumbfounded. I didn't even know what to talk about. I was used to being defended. I was used to being guarded. And at first, I was still sort of defensive and angry. But he maintained his receptive mood. As I said, later in his life, about the last 13 years of his life, my dad and I became like best friends. I found out that he understood me better than I ever knew. And to hear him tell me, "I'm proud of you," it's like, wow, miracles do happen. But that was not possible if we were not willing to sit down and talk and really listen deeply. Do you know what I mean by listening deeply? It's like really listening to what's coming from the heart of the other person without trying to formulate an argument in your mind of what you're going to say while they're still talking. It means listening to what's coming from their heart in between the words and behind the words, and addressing the Christ in them. That's listening deeply. And that's what Ohana is about. Like paddling in the canoe, it's a team. I've been in canoes where people were splashing each other or hitting each other with their paddles. And there are families like that. Maybe you are fortunate enough to belong to such a family where you dread going to a family Christmas because it's so awkward and you wonder when someone is going to attack someone else or attack you. Why would I call that fortunate? Well, I mean, I'm very grateful for my family, but all of our Ohanas, it could be our blood family, it could be our family by choice, it could be our spiritual community, it could be our wider community, it could be our world. All of our Ohanas present us the opportunity to face ourselves. Take a deep breath. Because all of our Ohanas reflect us. What we see in another that aggravates us, probably aggravates us because it is mirroring something in us that we don't like, our shadow side. And sometimes we dislike that shadow side so much. We're in the canoe together, but we're taking our paddle and we're whacking the other person over the head with it. Metaphorically, of course. Thinking the other person is the problem rather than working on ourselves. And the truth is, and I've had people come to me for counseling, and sometimes they are talking about how badly their spouse treats them or how badly their boss treats them or whatever. There's been a few times where I've said, and I make sure I have enough distance between me and them when I say it. I say, well, as I see it, your spouse isn't here, your boss isn't here, but you are. And I guess the only person you can really work on is you. Sometimes that's a hard thing to chew. That we're the ones that we're working on. Ernest Holmes, who developed religious science, which is now called Centers for Spiritual Living, in teaching his prayer practitioners, like prayer chaplains, except much more rigorous because they would go through 2 or 3 years of training, told them, the person you are treating in a prayer treatment is yourself. You are treating the image that you have of this other person. You may have an image of them as broken. You may have an image of them as sick. What you are healing is your own image of that. And as you are treating that image, there begins to be a vibration like tuning forks. And the truth that you are establishing in yourself begins to resonate in them because there's only oneness. There's only one presence. And they begin to align with the truth of their being, knowing and experiencing wholeness, peace, prosperity, abundance. Because that's the only truth. So he taught the principle that we first and only really work on ourselves. And that is how we bring awakening in our world. We cannot change someone else. But by working on ourselves and being authentic lights in this world, we can help create a world of transformation. It's something to honk your horn about. The mission statement of this church is about transformation. And our vision statement points the way as to what our transformation is about. It's about being centered in God. It's about this consciousness of oneness. It's about helping others to awaken. You know, have you ever set an alarm and you're in a deep sleep and it just keeps going off? And you think you're dreaming this sound. And as it persists and gets louder and louder, it begins to wake you up. And maybe in your groggy state, you say, "What is that?" And eventually you realize, oh, it's morning. That is my alarm. We are here to be alarm clocks, not alarmists, but alarm clocks for one another. To help us all to rise up and awaken into this spiritual ohana that we are called to be. We're not here to just be in isolation. We're not here to try to prove that we are right. We are here to work together as a team. As someone recently pointed out, we are sometimes a group, but not a team. That may be true in your family. It may be true in your primary relationships. It may be true in your spiritual community. It may be true in our world. Because we sometimes get locked into our differences and we affirm our differences so that we can prove to ourselves that we're somehow better than someone else because of our low self-esteem. But when we recognize who we really are, then we can begin to see the beauty of what other people are, and we can live and step into that. Now we had a work day yesterday. Here's some of the people who showed up. This isn't all of them. People of diverse kinds coming together. You may not have been able to be here. That doesn't make you any less part of the team. We're all part of this team. We're all part of it. We're all in this together. We have different gifts. We have different styles. We have differences. Again, the name of this church is not uniformity. It is unity. Unity is about respecting our differences. Unity is about listening to our differences, really listening, not trying to shut it up. Unity is about acknowledging our differences and embracing one another, like my father and I did. It's not easy. Who said spiritual work was going to be easy? Did someone say that? I believe that we are called to something that requires commitment. And as I spoke about last Sunday, about taking the yoke, the yoga, the practice upon yourself, it is a practice. It's a daily practice. So, as we came together, what we were here to practice was seva. Do you know that word, seva? That's service. Now, a Sanskrit word for service. It's a prayer. Yesterday, after working real hard, we gathered up in room 201, and they wanted a prayer. But it occurred to me, and I stated this, that we've been in prayer all morning through our sacred service. Our sacred service is prayer. It's not just when we're quiet with folded hands. bhakti, the path of devotional service, is prayer. When we're loving and serving each other, that's prayer. When Mother Teresa was ministering to individuals who were dying in the streets, left on the sidewalk to rot, she would look at each one of them and see the Christ. And each one of them that she ministered to, she saw as Jesus. At that moment, that person was Jesus to her. And so she saw one person at a time and did not see differences or distinctions. She knew only oneness. And she practiced it. We teach these things. We talk about these things. Our fifth unity principle is to practice them, is to live them, is to do them. Because our second unity principle is that each one of us are the outpicturing of that divine presence and recognizing it. So, don't have a picture of everyone's work. Thomas and I were digging a hole. When I heard that there was a project to break ground and dig a hole, I was all in. I jumped immediately to that. I thought, good, some hot physical labor where I can get dirty and just sweat and get soaked. So we planted this gardenia bush, Thomas and I. As you can tell, we're happy as we're doing sacred service. This gardenia bush was one of the plants that we purchased in memory of J.R. Coleman, who would come every Saturday morning. Every Saturday morning at 8:30, we have people who gather to clean our campus. I know some people think that there's fairies that show up and do all that. But it's not fairies, it's angels. And it's angels that are right here. There's people in the kitchen who are doing that. There's people in the front office who are doing that. There's singers who are doing that. There's ushers and hospitality people that are doing that. That's part of our sacred service. Our primary goal in doing sacred service, I can't believe I'm going to say this, and it's going to be recorded. Oh my gosh. The primary purpose of sacred service is not to beg and cajole you into doing something to help us. The primary purpose of sacred service is your own spiritual growth and prayer. It's part of the practice. It's how we grow, and it's how we connect and get to know each other. So as Thomas and I are digging and we're getting dirty, and he pulls out the hose to water the plant and clean himself off, I don't know, maybe about 7 or 8 times he accidentally sprayed me with water. 7 or 8 times I'm wondering, is it really an accident? Especially as I'm walking away and I get sprayed all over, you know. It's about working together. And, by the way, when you walk to Connection Central for breakfast, on your right will be this gardenia bush. And today, now, JR made his transition a few months ago. But today is JR's birthday. So we celebrate sacred service, and that once someone is part of this Ohana, they always are. Once we're family, we're always family. Sometimes families tussle. We need to work it out. We need to listen. We need to love deeply. Paul was talking about this. The Apostle Paul in Ephesians chapter 4. Now, Paul did some time. Paul did time in prison, and I've seen one of these prisons. It was a hole in the ground with a little covering on top and a little slat just to let in a little bit of light and a little bit of air. Paul was a prisoner, and he wrote this: I beg you, I, a prisoner here in jail for serving the Lord, to live and act in a way worthy of those who have been chosen for such wonderful blessings as these. I'm surprised people don't burst out laughing when they hear this. Do you not hear what he's saying? I'm in jail. We need to give thanks for these blessings. Come join me. How's that sound for a recruitment speech? If I was trying to recruit volunteers, hey, let's go to jail together. Be patient with each other. Be humble and gentle. That word humble means grounded, on the earth. Not thinking that you're above someone else, but really seeing each other. Like that second unity principle, really seeing that divine presence in each other. And treating each other accordingly. Be humble and gentle. Gentle! Gentle, not whacking each other with the paddles. Gentle. Sometimes with our grandson, Olga Lucia will tell him, be gentle. Because he'll just want to grab something and rattle it. No, be gentle. Be patient with each other. Making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Try always to be led along together by the Holy Spirit. That is, align yourself to the Holy Spirit. Align yourself with the presence of God. And so be at peace with one another. And here's New Thought teaching. Here's metaphysical teaching, straight from Paul, okay? We are all parts of one body. We have the same Spirit. And we have all been called to the same glorious future. For there is only one Lord, one faith, one baptism, and we all have the same God and Father who is over us all and in us all and living through every part of us. So, if one part of my body is fighting against another part of my body, you know what medically we call that? Autoimmune disease. It's a type of autoimmune disease where one part of my body is fighting with another part. Can be lethal. Same is true in any relationship. Same is true in any type of ohana, any type of family. That when it's fighting against itself, it is going to destroy itself. So we are all parts of the same body. We are all one. And as we work together, and you notice, your hand doesn't look exactly like your foot. There's similarities, but it doesn't look exactly like it. My head doesn't look quite like my knee. Well, just because there's something unique and beautiful and special about you doesn't mean that you don't belong. Pardon the double negative. We all are part of this same body. We all belong. You're never alone. The idea of separation doesn't belong. We are all one. We're all here to work together, to be ohana, to be family, to work it out. Someone asked me at the breakfast between services, Reverend Tim, forgiveness, yeah? Do you have to let the other person know? Do they have to be involved in the forgiveness process? I said, of course not. Forgiveness is not about the other person. Forgiveness is the healing process that we engage in so that we no longer carry the burden of what has happened. It doesn't excuse what they did. We're not absolving them or letting them off the hook. We're letting ourselves free. They don't have to know about it at all. It has nothing to do with them. Forgiveness is about letting ourselves be free. That's why Jesus taught us in the Lord's Prayer forgive us our trespasses as, in the same way, as we forgive others their trespasses. It's because we can't experience in ourselves what we are holding on to against another. It's a very metaphysical principle. So if we want to be free, we need to experience oneness, to experience what Ohana really means. Aloha.